Welcome to the Sunday Talk. Tonight, the politics of 2016. The Liberals began last year a party in third place with a leader criticized as a lightweight. Well, now he's Prime Minister, and the political landscape in Canada has been flipped on its head. Last year, there was a huge shift. Tonight, in a special panel, we talk about where we're headed now.
This is what positive politics can do.
We gave everything we have to give, and we have no regrets whatsoever.
With this election, Canadians have asked us all to work for them. We will not let them down.
A taste of two concessions on election night and one triumph.
We got a big to-do list, but I've got a great team to get it done, and that's what Canadians are expecting.
Justin Trudeau defied and then raised expectations. Now he has to meet them, and there are many waiting for him to fail. For Conservatives, it was a campaign of the crestfallen. According to insiders from Stephen Harper's camp, a sense of desperation hung over those final days.
When I find myself in times of trouble.
After nearly a decade in power, Harper resigned as top Tory and now looks like an average guy. The Conservatives, the official opposition now, need to choose his successor. Tom Mulcair's quest to take the NDP to a historic win,
You ready to bring change to Ottawa?
was washed away by a red wave. The party diminished under Mulcair's watch, but he remains leader for now. I'm joined by our panelists. John Moore is a talk radio host in Toronto. Jonathan Kay is editor-in-chief at Walrus Magazine. And Tasha Carradine is a panelist with the National Post and iPolitics. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
So we're going to get going here, your predictions for the year in a moment. But first, you know you're invited here because you're so smart. But just how smart are you?
Oh, no.
We are going to run some of your predictions from last year and just see how you stack up. Here we go.
I think Trudeau has a pretty good brand with most voters, and I think Trudeau's going to sink or swim based on his own standing with Canadians. I don't think attack ads are going to hurt him that much.
People are tired of this government. They're tired of the sourness of this government. They're tired of the hectoring aspect of this government that tells Canadians this is how to think, or you're not a very good Canadian.
I think out of touch. And that goes to a lot of issues around Mr. Harper. There's the ethical issues, out of touch with the system, out of touch with Canadians. I think that the opposition will try and make it look like he's tired and not the leader to take us forward.
Okay.
Not so bad.
Feeling relieved?
I can't remember what I said, to be honest with you.
Well, and you were talking about what the opposition would say about him.
Yes.
But John, you were one of the first journalists to come out and say this guy's a little tougher than some Canadians might think. So what about the year to come? What kind of year is he going to have?
Well, it's interesting because I spent the holidays with relatives, some of whom are a little older, and some of whom voted differently than I did. And their big concern was that he will not be tough enough when things do get difficult. And they had in mind specifically foreign policy. They had in mind the possibility of terrorist attacks. And it's nice to embrace sunny ways when things are going well. The concern is that when things aren't going well, he's not the right leader. And that was the one strength that everybody, I think, can agree that Harper was very good with. When there was the attacks on Parliament Hill, Harper came out and gave exactly the right speech, showed the country that he was in charge. He came across as everybody's happy dad who was going to be strong and confident. I think the first big challenge that Trudeau will have to deal with is when things do get difficult, God forbid, there is some kind of terrorist attack.
Come to you in a second, Tasha, but John?
Yeah, I thought the Prime Minister did do a good job after the attack, but I also don't think that lasted very long, and I wasn't absolutely convinced that that was some sort of litmus test for leadership. And I know people tried very hard in the Paris attacks to say this is a test of Trudeau. He looked a little shaky. I don't think those small tests amount to very much, and I think that the year to come is going to be tough economically. The headwinds are going to be quite extreme, but I think Conservatives are fooling themselves when they keep insisting, now he's failed, now he's failed. There was no Canadian with a stopwatch at midnight on New Year's Eve saying, we didn't get enough Syrians in. Justin Trudeau's a failure. And I think the Conservatives are in for a very tough road ahead, including their proxies in the media, when they keep predicting that Justin is going to fade or fail this year.
Well, I think that they have to wait for those failures. I agree with you. Just pointing out that he's taking in fewer Syrian refugees on a longer timeline is not going to be perceived as a failure. In fact, a lot of people agreed with that. I think, though, I will concede your point on if there's a terrorist attack and he's seen to bungle that, if that happens, that would be a failure. I'm with you on the economy, though. I think the economy is going to be the real litmus test. I think we're already seeing very bad warning bells about higher food prices due to the low dollar, which isn't his fault. It's not Trudeau's fault. But he's inherited the situation. And as we know, what you inherit, you tend to wear, unless you can get yourself out of it. And if his policies make things worse or are seen to make things worse, then you're going to see people saying, I am out of a job, I can't feed my kids, this is a problem, and it's your fault, Mr. Trudeau, and the shine's going to wear off.
You mentioned deficit, the election, or economic issues being big. He said he would allow in the election campaign.
Modest.
Yeah, maybe a $10 billion deficit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to laugh about the economy. It's going to get bigger. It has to get bigger. Let's face it. The Tories fudged the books in their last year. The Tories balanced the budget once, and it was their first budget, and it was because of what they inherited from the Liberals. I'm not saying this because one or the other is any better. You deal with the times that you're in. And I don't think I honestly think we're going to look at 20 to 25 billion in the first budget. But aside from my good friends at the National Post and the Sun, I don't think Canadians are going to wake up the next morning and say, that's my number one issue. Budgets, people don't notice deficits.
They're going to wake up, not necessarily the next morning, but they're going to wake up for the next election if they keep running this year after year. Because the result of that, especially if interest rates starts to go up, as they have south of the border, they are starting to go up, is going to be less room to pay for all the other goodies that Justin Trudeau said he would bring in. So if they start already with a massive deficit, by the end of their term, they will have then added $100 billion to our debt, which is $600 billion as it stands now. That is not a small number. And I think people will start to notice it again if they start to lose their jobs, if things get more expensive, if inflation comes back because of a low dollar and the cost of imports or other things happen.
Is there some forgiveness in that file?
I actually think Justin Trudeau did a very smart thing in telling people in advance that he was going to run deficits. It's actually very difficult to find...
But to double it if
to find modern politicians, but who actually said the D word during the campaign. As part of my reporting during the campaign, I went out with Krista Freeland door to door, and she would tell people, we're going to run a small deficit because now is the time to invest in infrastructure. Interest rates are low. There's a very low cost for borrowing money. We have this infrastructure deficit. And people's eyes glazed over a little bit because it was so technocratic. On the other hand, what they did hear was, okay, they're telling me there's going to be a deficit. It's not going to be a surprise.
We've got to move on to other parties
brilliant.
now, or we're not going to be able to cover everyone. So, Tash, I'll come to you, because you were, like many small C or big C conservatives, you sort of suggested some level of dissatisfaction with some of the tone in the campaign. Where do you see the party going now? Which way and under whom?
Oh, well, that is the question that they will have to answer over the next while. And I think, first of all, they should take their time on this. There's a lot of talk right now, a lot of happiness or satisfaction with the performance of Rona Ambrose as leader. She surprised a lot of people in the sense that people didn't know where she was hiding until now.
She's interim.
She is interim, but she has a strong personality. She is a sympathetic figure. It's as if all of a sudden she emerged from a cocoon of Harperness, and there she is. And so there is actual talk. People are saying, well, maybe she'll have to make a decision. Maybe the party will have to decide when they set their rules, will she be allowed to run for the permanent leadership? Because she's doing a great job, and so far she wouldn't be allowed to, but that could always be changed. There are a lot of other candidates, too. I think that the Conservatives, though, what we've seen in the last little while is a sense that it's too early to necessarily be seen to be too nakedly seeking that job, that the party has to figure out where it stands on the spectrum and wait for Trudeau to fail, because you're right, they can beat up as opposition on the government all they want, but if the government still has a honeymoon, it's not going to help them.
John, the country has changed a little bit since Stephen Harper was chosen as the leader of the Conservatives. Which way do you see it going? Because you're seeing it pull in different directions.
I don't know if it's Rona Ambrose, but the party needs a woman to lead it right now. Just optically, and I say this from a total cynical perspective. I'm not trying to empower women here.
It's good to know.
I just want to be very clear about that. Look, it is the party of grumpy white men, people who fearmonger about terrorism and crime and all these sort of Archie Bunker issues. They have to change their image. And I know it's a superficial thing, but one way they could do it is to have a female leader. For one thing, they wouldn't have to be so heavy-handed about things like, say, the child benefit checks, that they, you had Pierre Poilievre going out and actually taking photo ops when they were printing the benefit checks in Winnipeg and saying, look, even though we're men, we care about children. they wouldn't have to do stuff like that because maybe their image would be a little bit more natural, softer. They'd appeal to more voters. I just think it would be a smart
Well,
thing
they
to
get
do.
a Margaret Thatcher. Not all women are created equal, you know.
I
And I
would.
will say,
Women are grumpy,
to
ever.
dump
John,
your
a quick point to
stereotype
you.
It could be a
Sure,
Trojan horse, but
it's-
at least you get the horse into the walls, right?
It's going to be a long road, and I think the Conservatives should probably prepare themselves for at least one more election cycle where they would be in opposition, if not more. I don't believe the country ever got more conservative under the Conservatives. Their heavy-handedness worked because they're kind of a fractious party, but without Harper, they were nothing, so they had to stick with him. Now I think you're looking at the sort of battle for the future of the party, and if the Liberals won by going left, what are the Tories supposed to do?
Well, and what do you think is going to happen to Tom Mulcair?
Oh, you know, I like Thomas Mulcair a great deal. I think he's probably one of the best leaders in a raft of great leaders that that party's had, but I don't see the point of the NDP anymore. I just don't. I don't see what they're there for.
There's four left-of-center parties. The advantage for the Conservatives is there is one right-of-center party, so it'd be very difficult for them to screw things up in the long run because they're going to be the alternative of anybody who is alienated by Trudeau eventually. You've got the Greens, you've got the Bloc, you've got the NDP, you've got the Liberals. Again, what is the point of the NDP?
What is the point? What if well, first of all, you're assuming we're going to be voting the same way the next time around, and that changes everything. And this is the big debate that the government's going to be having on changing the rules for voting, eliminating first past the post. They vowed to do that, replace it with something else.
That is the first promise I would break if I were Trudeau.
Well, I don't think he'll necessarily break it. They're saying they won't even hold a referendum, which is going to be a big debate in of itself. A lot of people are very unhappy about that.
It's part of their platform, though.
It's part of their platform. They promised to look at change, to bring in change, but what change, we don't know. And that would make the NDP potentially very relevant in certain scenarios, less relevant in others. So I don't see the NDP as going away or not having a role at all. I think
predict the Liberals will break that as a cynical thing, just in the same way I gave my cynical advice to the Conservatives on getting a female leader. I think cynically the Liberals, they should just say, oh, no, we never said that.
Really? Well, I don't think that's what they're saying. And I think that if they did break that, I think that a referendum would be an out for them in some senses because they would probably lose it, whoever was championing change, as has happened in other provinces across the country. But I think if they break that, that would be a very major disillusionment and a boost to the NDP and other
This will be
people.
the income trust issue for the Liberals.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, we have you all on tape, so see you
Till
back in the
next
year.
year.
But actually, we're not done yet, so I'm going to ask you to hold on, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, been a very big year in American politics. We're going to talk about Donald Trump and what else we might watch for because it's 2016. Welcome back to the Sunday Talk. So we've covered politics in Canada, but it's set to be a historic year south of the border. And not just because Hillary Clinton could become the first female president. There's also Donald Trump.
We're going to build the wall, okay? Believe me. We're going to build the wall.
Total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
She was favored to win, and she got schlonged.
The presidential election is coming in November. It should be interesting. Tasha, what's your prediction? Trump, Clinton, Trump in?
You know what? I'm 50-50 on Trump getting the nomination. The Republican Party, okay, stop, John, you'll get your chance in a second. The Republican Party has got to get behind the anti-Trump if he is going to not take the nomination, or they're going to have a brokered convention or something. I don't think they want to let him get it, but I talked to people, over the holidays, people I've randomly run into even from the U.S. who are very reasonable small C conservatives, and they like Trump because they see him as the strong man, the strong populist. He and Putin actually have a lot more in common than he probably would want to admit. But I would say 50-50, it'll be a Trump-Clinton matchup.
Both Johns are trying to get in here, but I'll let you go first, John.
Okay, this is a John K. fact. It's going to be Rubio.
I know you love Rubio. It could be Rubio.
Love is a strong word, but 12 months from now, when they play my predictions from this show, once again, you're going to say, man, you nailed it on Trudeau, you nailed it on Rubio. That's what you're going to be saying.
Empowering women?
I did that in the first segment. So, and also, by the way, Carly Fiorina, I'm sorry, I'd love to say nice things about her, but she's a weird person.
Okay, we're not having a Carly debate.
Next.
Yeah.
John?
I think people have got to quit this idea that Trump is a joke, that he's going to drop out. Why would he drop out? He's a narcissist and he's an egomaniac. He's loving it. He's in the lead. Why would he drop out? Why would he lose? I honestly think there's a very high probability that he could be the nominee. And if he is, then watching him debate Hillary is going to be absolutely hilarious.
It's going to be journalistic gold. I don't know about the state of the country, but every pundit, every journalist is excited about this.
And it's not just about it's not the candidate, it's the constituency. And for anybody who survived Rob Ford, I saw that one coming because I watched his rallies and I thought this guy's got the message they want to hear.
It's a populist thing.
GOP candidate will be Rubio. The United States is not a tobacco. I mean, portions of it do resemble it.
That's the line of the night.
Look, I absolutely guarantee. There's a few things I guarantee. This is one of them.
Okay, well, I'm just back from Phoenix, where the next door neighbor was a guy called the Bullet Feeder King. So I've been in touch with a lot of people who are telling me it's Trump.
Same.
One last quick question. The other story that you predict will be the big story of, and I'll start with you, John. First.
You know, I'd love to say the dissolution of the European community and stuff like that, but I think it's going to be a continuation of a trend we watched this year, and that is the complete and utter transformation of the economy. Most of my listeners probably didn't know what Uber was on this date last year, and then it's like 60% of taxi rides are now in Uber. This is going to happen to every sector. I myself walk around constantly thinking, how many of these jobs around me will still exist 10 years from now?
Tasha?
Creative destruction. Well, actually, my story, I think, going domestic here, is going to be poverty. I think poverty is going to reemerge as an issue in this country. I think it's going to be driven by the economy. It's going to be driven by the fact that prices are going to go up due to the low value of our dollar, to potentially higher unemployment, problems in the oil sector that will continue to reverberate across the country, and the fact that Ontario has still not got its act together economically. So Alberta falls, Ontario is not rising. And I think that you're going to see more people at food banks. I think in Canada, we focus so much on the middle class that this is something we've not been looking at, but it's going to return, and all parties need something to address that.
Big story for this year?
I think 2016 is going to be the year where we finally get an assisted suicide law nationally. It's going to be, February is going to be when the deadline is for the Supreme Court judgment from 2015, when Parliament's going to have to act. And I think elder care more generally, and some of the chronic conditions that a lot of our geriatric cases are facing in Canada. It's something we don't like to talk about. We tend to focus more on acute medical conditions like cancer and cardiac care and that sort of thing. But I think from a policy point of view, this might be finally the year where we look at some of the chronic elder care geriatric issues that we haven't looked at and need to be examined.
But not as funny as Donald Trump.
No.
Sober now. We're all sober now.
Lots of big economic issues there. Thank you so much.
See you next year.
We'll see what happens this year.
Yeah, that's right.